5 things why it gets worse after walking away from the narcissist before it gets better. Let's say you're optimistic about your own ability to advance rapidly. If you feel untouched by what transpired after leaving the narcissist or going no contact, you are setting yourself up for a lot of sadness and disappointment. Why? Permit me to elaborate. To learn the 5 reasons why, tune into today's episode of Hi, Welcome Matt. There's been a physical change in you. After I ended my relationship with the narcissist, things got worse. If that piques your interest, you can receive instant notifications anytime I post new content to this channel by clicking the subscribe button and the bell icon. Alright then, let's get moving. In the first place, you have a severe brain injury. This may seem excessive, but it's not. Narcissistic abuse actually changes the way your brain works. Please give this some thought. A narcissist's companion requires constant vigilance. Constantly, you're just clinging to survival by a thread. Suddenly, you're shifting between 2 critically unstable survival positions. You used to fight all the time. You may be attempting to flee if the situation were different. The second time, you'd freeze up because you'd feel helpless and unable to do anything about the situation. One must always assume survival as a minimum goal. It's typical of narcissists to act cruelly at random. You are now unsure of the status of your relationship. You have no idea of the current situation. You have no idea how close you are to them or how they feel about you. This is because, at any given time, they could be Dr. Jekyll and the next minute Mr. Hyde. Relationships make it impossible to know who each partner really is or who you really are. Suppose this is the type of problem that arises. In actuality, you'll be dealing with that for a matter of hours, not months or even a year. If it describes your typical activities and thought processes, how could you possibly be unaffected by it? How exactly could your neurological system hold out at this point? How exactly would you reach your full potential? How could you ever think that? Improve your health and return to normalcy this way. In the short time after leaving narcissistic abuse, significant changes occur in the brain, the nervous system, and the biochemistry. Your fundamental mode of operation alters, affects your state of mind and emotions. You guys are committed. Once you've been modified, you're nothing but a collection of defense mechanisms and new versions of yourself that will require time to adapt. A bigger amygdala was necessary. The impact was a diminution in hippocampal size. Growth in the total area of the prefrontal cortex is necessary for adaptation, to improve your chances of making it through this ordeal unscathed. Getting there would have been a major factor in whether or not you could survive the challenges you encountered. That you are here today to listen to me speak implies that this is the case. Therefore, it was bound to happen. You have made changes and revisions and must now deal with the consequences. It will take some time for your brain, nervous system, and body to adjust to this radical alteration. Recuperation and metamorphosis take time. It's not an easy job to do. To be specific, the second. You've acquired bad habits that you just can't seem to break. In a relationship with a narcissist, you will feel the need to constantly diminish your own worth. Gaslighting causes you to believe something to be true. The one is responsible for all the bad things the narcissist has done. As a sort of discipline, substance abuse and other forms of self-destruction are employed. In terms of substance abuse, smoking, and nutrition. Misplaced priorities in a sexual relationship could lead to waste. Basically, anything may go place here. These routines serve to dull discomfort and keep you going. You need them to remain alive, but they wind up shaping who you are. Even if you decide to quit the relationship someday, you can't just forget about them like that. Investing the necessary time and resources is necessary. There are other ways to handle this that you'll have to investigate. Before sending information to your brain, your nervous system checks for any disruptions in the body's natural homeostasis. In order to experience the pain inherent in letting go of what you're still carrying. Since this is the case, you ought to be. To the extent that you confront these, may you find forgiveness and solace once more. Addiction to drugs or alcohol is difficult to overcome. So far, it appears that nothing is wrong. Keep in mind that this is what makes the situation more complicated. Even if you need some time to heal, there was a purpose for why events played out the way they did. The inability to show mercy to others is third on this list. You're making things more difficult by harboring self-hatred so that you may grieve in peace. In the time it takes you to find things out. To a shocking degree, if you ask me. The mood of depression and self-reproach. You berate yourself for being so oblivious and for having delayed your escape. You either feel stupid or you don't. Stuck in a never-ending loop of harboring anger toward one's own self. It's tough to forgive oneself when you're the only one involved in the fire. The dynamics of narcissistic relationships are complex. You did not know then what you know now. You didn't always have the introspection that you do today. So I had some difficulty working through this. Let me apologize. Those individuals have greatly complicated matters. I can't believe you're even considering leaving. It's true. You are the same. You became closer to the other trauma survivors as you shared your experiences. There are a lot of inconsistencies that make no sense. The inability to think properly due to internal conflict between these two competing notions is known as cognitive dissonance. A narcissist's point of view. Since one seems good and angelic, while the other is terrible, it's difficult to know which is the genuine side. In my mind, it was inevitable that you would reach a point where you could go no further. That's the essential piece of information for getting things done. Compassion for one's own flaws. Just let it all out. It's healthy for you. You should focus your emotions solely on one item. Self-compassion means having empathy for yourself right now. More than that, there was a lot of it. In fourth place, we have the complex post-traumatic stress response/disorder. People who have survived severe trauma are more likely to display narcissistic traits. There is a complex element to both typical and atypical PTSD symptoms. Some of your symptoms are more widespread than others. For example, you also experience emotional dysregulation, suicidality, chronic self-doubt, and hypervigilance, in addition to the more frequent cognitive dissonance and trauma bonding. You've had a rough go of it, to say the least. When you work together, you can accomplish anything. Abuse comes in many forms, and none of them are acceptable, even when they cause profound sadness. The alternative is that you are extremely disheartened by the fact that you cannot. Having trouble concentrating, having trouble sleeping, or all of the above, you may be experiencing a complex PTSD reaction because of the complexity of the situation you've overcome. In light of the tragedy's complexity, it stands to reason that your reaction would be just as intricate. Therefore, it is possible to comprehend the causes of this phenomenon. When we describe complex post-traumatic stress disorder, we also talk about complex trauma, and that requires a substantial amount of rest and relaxation in the first place. This indicates that the issue will likely not go away. In the long run, it will be just like this. Making an effort is required. A lot of work needs to be done on the inside. Just give yourself some time to process it. You have matured through your experience of grief. Allow yourself to be sad, and then cope with that sadness. You need some alone time to think about such things. This is so that you can put a stop to the problem. Just let things from your past be what they are. This leads us to our fifth and last point. The story's backstory is extremely intricate. And this is one of the hardest wars to wage. Narcissistic abuse trauma is characterized by the toxicity of shame, lasting guilt, and internal criticism. This disorder takes on a life of its own when it manifests in flashbacks. An overwhelming sensation of feeling can wash over you during a flashback. You be the judge besides blaming others for your own shortcomings, comparing yourself unfavorably to others, worrying too much about the future, etc. Allowing yourself to go with the flow makes it appear as though things are happening without your involvement. Remember that what you're going through is a flashback and that you can't always stop them. Anyone can come and go as they choose. It's possible that you're having a flashback because anything in the area has prompted you to recall an association or related occurrences. You recall every detail, and you're almost there again. Those are the classic signs of trauma that persist throughout time. There is a significant time commitment involved. Having patience is a virtue. Please remember, even if I seem like a broken record, that time, patience, compassion, and a mountain of love and support are all that stand between you and a full recovery. The show for today has now ended. I hope that helped shed some light on the matter for you. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below so that we can continue this conversation. For the time being, focus on healing. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Whenever I do a video in the future, I'll make it a point to make sure the explanations are easy to understand and helpful. In the box down below, I'd like to hear your take on the matter. Your interest is really appreciated, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch. May you all enjoy today,